Three. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very, very special edition of Wrestling with the Future. Tonight, The Writer's Room, one of our most popular features. I'm your host, Angelo DeCipio, joined tonight by an intriguing guest. Now, I want to tell you something. There are women who have made their mark in the world of pro wrestling, and there are women who have forged the way for others who made their mark. Tonight, we have a trailblazer. Jeannine Mjoseth, I hope to God I'm saying that name right.
No, it's actually Mjoseth.
There you go. I knew I was going to get corrected.
I imagine that your last name gets massacred from time to time too.
Yeah, oh my God. Absolutely. But you know this lovely young lady better by her alter egos, Lady Maxine, Mad Maxine. We're going to talk about all three of these individuals, this trinity called Jeannine. We are doing a little different tonight for Wrestling with the Future tonight. And if you know the show, and apparently by the numbers you do, you're used to seeing Dan the Man and Big Ben Scala with me. I'm flying solo. This is a new venture for me, a new show. We call this show The Writer's Room. We've done quite a few of these with Nikita Brezhnikov and Scott Teal, of course, Christine Nordstrom, and as well as Kenny Casanova. Great writers. And tonight, Jeannine Mad Maxine joins them. I will get your name right. I swear to you, I'll get your name right before the show is over. So let me I'm already having fun. Let me just tell you, but Jeannine is a former journalist, independent art curator, and professional lady wrestler, better known by her ring personas, Mad Maxine and Lady Maxine. And we'll talk about all three of these people later. During her time served in the World Wrestling Federation, she sported her trademark green mohawk and was trained and managed, incidentally, by the legendary Lilian Ellison. You know her better as, and the world knows her, quite frankly, as the Fabulous Moolah. And after retiring from wrestling, she pursued a career in journalism, worked as a science writer for the National Institute of Health, and is particularly the Institute on Aging and the National Human Genome Research Project. We're going to talk about that tonight. I'm really curious how she got into this, and we're going to talk about the book. The book tonight is you have to find this book. It's available on Amazon. It's the Chronicles of Mad Maxine, and let me tell you a little bit about it. It's the story of a one-woman story of training to be a professional lady wrestler at the Fabulous Moolah School in Columbia, South Carolina. The novel is set on a 30-acre farm, of course, in Columbia, where it's a fictionalized account. We're going to talk about that word, fictionalized. Where it's a fictionalized account of one woman's experience in the mid-1980s, becoming skilled at the flying head scissor. Remember that one? The soaring suplex. Nobody even remembers these moves anymore. And of course, the albeit still used common everyday body slam. Both hardcore wrestling fans and people who have never seen a match in their life will thrill with the raw action both inside and outside the ring at this renowned Camp Moolah, as told by Jeannine Mad Maxine
Mjoseth.
Hey, there you go. I will get this. I swear to you, I will get this tonight. So, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I wanted you on because I'm hearing a lot of crazy things about this book. It's interesting, Jeannine, and we're going to hit it right out of the box. The book is a fictionalized account. So it says, however, my research tells me otherwise. You and I know a lot of the same people. You and I worked for a lot of the same people, in fact. One of the things I was struck by, and if anybody knows your story, they know that you did, in fact, train with Moolah. She did, in fact, manage you. And she put a great deal of stock in you. You were one of her standouts. why call the book a fictionalized account when essentially it's autobiographical?
Well, those instances where you've gone to a party and the perfect comeback to something that somebody said occurs to you later after you've left the room, you've gone home. It's like the perfect comeback. That's kind of how the book is. There were a lot of things that happened that were based on what actually happened in the book. But there are a lot of things that I just completely made up, and because they moved the action forward.
Sure.
I prefer fiction, so prefer to read fiction, and I just am not as interested in something that's just a straight, take. So I figured, given that wrestling is kind of a gray area itself, it's
Oh boy.
it everybody knows that wrestlers get hurt all the time. There's a lot of pain involved when you get into the ring. You learn how to deal with pain, but there's a lot of entertainment aspect to it too. So I figured it was within my creative license to explore that gray area. Some of it's
Fair enough. Sure.
Some of it is not.
Fair enough, and that's a very good explanation for it. Why not then? Why not just go with the route of so many other wrestlers turned authors and write a straight shoot, or half shoot as an autobiography, or just like a lot of people do, just make shit up. And we know it happens. You and I know that's 90% of all wrestling books are bullshit.
Oh, well,
and we know that.
Right, I didn't know that. No.
But you're telling everybody, look, my book is mostly bullshit because I made it up.
I would say, it's very.
Oh, Maxine, Jeannine froze up on us. Oh, there you go. There she is. Oh, you froze up. You're back. There we go.
Yep.
Terrific. So we got it all, though. We're good. It's interesting. One of the people we had on the writer's room previously was Scott Teal. Scott is, as you know, Scott is a prolific wrestling writer. I'd like to throw. I'm gonna throw the monkey wrench in your camp this time. When you're responsible for, in Scott's case, he's responsible for writing someone's story. When you're responsible for writing your own story, can you afford to take as many liberties as necessary to move the story forward? Or is there an obligation to both the author and the reader to kind of walk that line of truth?
I don't think when you call it a novel, there's no obligation whatsoever. That's what, you have the freedom, and that's what I was really looking for in the book. I mean, a lot of strange things happened in Columbia, South Carolina when I was training. And many novels have been based on real life events. So
sure,
it's a known genre. I don't feel like I have an obligation to adhere to the truth. If people don't want to read it, that's certainly their.
Well, actually, judging by the reviews you're getting, quite a few people are reading it.
Yeah,
and enjoying. Yeah, I've actually been kind of trolling you a little bit, to be honest with you. I've been trolling you. I've been trolling the book. You are getting some amazing reviews, incredible responses, and the book is selling. And thankfully, and good for you, it's selling.
Can I just give a shout out to Kenny Casanova, who has been super helpful in helping me navigate this whole process.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned Kenny, because Kenny's been a guest on the writer's room, and we've actually talked about the process that he goes through. Now, you've spoken to Kenny, so you know he has kind of this process that. So, did that process work for you instinctively being a wrestler?
What was really the biggest help he gave me was just like really brass tacks. He turned me on to a terrific publisher out in Michigan, and I worked. That's the company that he works with. There's just like some really nuanced things, some details
Mhm.
that you wouldn't know if you hadn't done it 100 times like he has.
Yeah.
He's just been really super helpful.
It's interesting. You look like an articulate young lady, a respectable, a woman that's the pillar of your community. Um, in far contrast to the photo behind you and the photo behind me, quite frankly, where you're sporting a half-shaved head, a rather colorful mohawk,
Yeah.
uh, and looking as badass can be. Um, of course, it's a character that you play. It is an extension of, they say wrestling is you turned up to 11. So somewhere
It,
in that school teacher, body is a crazy lady waiting to get out.
yeah. Don't you think most of us have a crazy person inside?
Oh my
Just
God, of course, especially if anybody who's ever made a living in professional wrestling, you have to be, and I, I divert back to something that a previous guest said. It's a great business if you've got multiple personality disorder. It really, really is. It's really, and we're going to talk about some of your personalities. Where did Mad Maxine come from? Let's establish that.
I was dating this really nice guy who was into comics, and he like put them in, those protective cellophane envelopes, and he
Mhm.
showed me one of this character, part of the X-Men called Storm, and at the
Oh, sure.
time, she was African American. She had a righteous mohawk, and she had like a biker outfit, and I just thought, wow, that's it. That's what I want. That's what I want. And I always really enjoyed the Mad Max movies too. So I just thought, get a Mad Maxine thing going. But when I first got to Columbia, Moolah said I needed, I had short hair, and she kind of reached over and grabbed my hair and said that I needed to grow it out, and so I could be like all the other wrestlers that she had. I mean, they were, beautiful young women, and they were slender, generally speaking. And
Right.
but when I saw that comic, I just thought that's the one for me. And I did not talk to her before I did it. I found somebody downtown to give me a mohawk. Group of friends who were all trainees went over with some bottles of bubbly, and we just made a party of it.
There
And
you go.
it's really fun. It was really fun. It was, 1980. I guess that would have been 80, like the end of 84. And, it was Columbia, I'm sure, has grown up a lot since then, but it was a pretty small
It
town,
has.
and
It's a very sprawling town. I will tell you that.
yeah,
Well,
it's
you've been there.
yeah,
Let's talk about Moolah, and her reaction to this half-shaved head, sporting this newly created mohawk.
she was not at
Anyone
all
who has
happy.
ever, and I'm sure you'll have something to say about this, but anybody that's ever done business or worked with Moolah, and there have been many on this show, many, featuring, in fact, 3 ladies' nights that we did.
Mhm.
Moolah came up every time, with Judy Martin, Alana Kai, Princess Victoria, all the people she worked with.
Mhm.
Not necessarily the nicest lady in the world, depending on whether or not she liked you.
Right,
And if she liked you, you were in like Flynn.
right.
And if she didn't, she made your life a living miserable hell.
Yep.
And I
Pretty
know
accurate.
I know your story. I know your personal story. You don't know that I do, but I do. And I know that Moolah put you through the ringer.
You know, I just I think that, you know, you nailed it on the head. I mean, she had people who she was really good to, and they are loyal and devoted to her to this day. And there were others who, you know, there was one of the trainees who'd been there for a year. She was kind of a heavy set woman. She
Yeah.
never was booked. She never booked a match for her. I think if you got on her bad side, it was really hard to get out of that hole. And
Yeah.
I
And
think,
that's kind of you just kind of went where I was going to go with this. Um, like this, it's just there's no two ways about it. But she was either you know this diamond that everyone loved, or you just hated her. There was no middle. It appeared to me from everyone I talked to, and I talked to a lot of people, Jeannine.
mhm.
Um, you either loved Moolah or you just didn't.
I haven't come across too many who loved her, but were loyal to her.
Oh, I've had a couple people on the show that just thought she walked on water.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll believe you.
Oh, well, you could go listen to the show. Yeah, there were people who thought she walked on water, and other people, quite frankly, like Princess Victoria, who knew better.
And
Um,
Wendy Richter too.
yeah, Wendy. I had a conversation with Wendy, and that conversation never made air. And we'll discuss. I'll tell you why afterward. But that conversation never made air, and won't. Um, but we have to. You can't broach the subject of women's wrestling and not mention the effect, impact, and legacy that Moolah created not only for herself but for other people. Now, the fact that she lent herself to you as a manager told me that there was something she either saw in you or, more the case, something she could get from you.
Right.
And that's the truth. And I'm sorry to be blunt about it, but that's just the way it is. So which was the case for you? Was it something she could extract from you, or did she genuinely feel like you had the it factor?
You know, we went up together to Poughkeepsie to do TV for WWF, as it was known back then,
Sure.
and met with Gorilla Monsoon. And I think it was the second time we went up, and he had a contract ready for me to sign, and they were both like kind of breathing down my neck, saying, "Go ahead and sign it."
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'm gonna take this home and have somebody look at it, meaning a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I did that, and was told that it was just a terrible contract with basically
Absolutely.
nothing for me. And so they were, I don't know what the contracts look like these days, but it was just another matter of Moolah and Vince exploiting talent. And,
Absolutely.
you know,
Well,
I
you'll
felt like,
notice, Jeannine, when I did your intro tonight,
mhm,
and I'm sure it wasn't lost on you, but I said, and I specifically used these words in my intro. During your time served in the World Wrestling Federation, and a lot of people do look at it as serving time. For you, was it serving time or was it time well served?
I mean, I think, the people who Donna Christiantello trained were among the very best trained people, women that you could find in the ring. I still think that's true. They just, it was 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, until you were ready. And
Mm-hmm.
you were not able, there was no missing a training
Yeah.
session. So you did a move, whatever move you're working on it, you did it like 100 times
Oh,
in
absolutely.
2 hours, so that you had it 100% under your belt. So you cannot fault the training that I and the other women at the camp got. I mean, it was what really kind of happened was when people who'd been trained by Moolah, I mean by Donna actually, would go out and work against or work with other women who had not been properly trained, and that's where the accidents happened.
Yeah,
It's so I have a lot of empathy
always.
for the quality of the training that I received. So
And
and
what did your training consist of with working with Moolah in South Carolina?
well, Moolah didn't really show up until you were just about, ready for a match. I mean, uh, she worked with you in preparation for your first match, or she worked with me in preparation for my first match, but it was Donna Christiantella who was there every single day,
Right.
putting you through the paces. And it was the
And I'm glad
hardest
that you
thing.
mentioned Donna's name because Jeannine, she doesn't get far too often. Moolah gets the credit for the
Yeah,
training when it's actually Donna,
yeah.
the late Donna Christianello, who did a lot of the training. And a
Hmm.
lot of people don't know that.
Yeah,
And a
yeah.
lot of people aren't aware that she was largely responsible for 90%, 95% of the women
Hmm.
that you saw from 1980 to 1986.
Right.
And people don't realize that.
Yep.
So my question to you was was her downplayed status, and I want to be careful how to say this, was her downplayed status purposeful and deliberate on Moolah's part, or was Donna just more comfortable in the shadows?
This was just guesswork on my part, but I suspect that it was the former. I think that she was downplayed because it meant that Moolah probably didn't have to pay her very much. She provided her a place to live, and
True.
I don't know what else, but I suspect Donna was a wrestler. She wasn't somebody who wanted to be in the shadows. She wanted to be in the ring,
Sure.
and so maybe she had gotten injured in the ring, and this was a better fit for her. But I suspect it was. This is just guesswork on my part,
Well,
but I
I know
suspect
what
it
it
was.
was. I can, if, and I know that you don't know, but I do. What it was that she owed Moolah, and Moolah held it over her head. She
What do you
owed
think
she
she
owed
owed Moolah?
she owed Moolah a lot,
What? What did she owe her? Money?
largely financial. Yeah,
Tell me more.
and hmm,
Tell me more.
I will discuss that with you off air because I have to be careful with that.
Okay.
But I do know that she owed her some financial, a lot, in fact, and Moolah held it over her head.
Okay, so that was the whole racket. Like Moolah would get you in debt to her, and then you would basically have to do whatever she
Well,
said.
so you just
So
you know what I'm talking about then.
yeah, well, I mean, and that's what happened with a lot of the other wrestlers.
Yeah,
They didn't have, a lot of them didn't have cars, so they couldn't go out and get a part-time job when they weren't wrestling, which was a lot of the time. Uh, you
and
know,
people think that I make this stuff up, and you're validating exactly what I'm saying.
no, I
It's
mean,
absolutely true.
yeah. So, I mean, then you're in debt to her, and you basically, you can't say no to whatever she asks you, and that just has,
Well, kind of
has
like
over a barrel.
yeah, it's the Godfather syndrome. They make an offer you can't refuse,
Exactly.
you know?
Like,
So let's talk about uh, there's this distinction between Lady Maxine and Mad Maxine. Where did the persona of Lady Maxine develop, and was that just an extension of Mad Maxine?
Initially, Lady Maxine was going to be the babyface persona, and Maxine was going to be the heel. But in fact, when I got down to Florida, uh, I went down from Columbia, I went back to Florida, started
Yeah.
in Miami, and then moved up to Tampa and hooked up with Chief Wahoo McDaniel, and he and I became partners. And I had this kind of crazy leather strappy kind of barbarian look,
Yeah.
and an outfit that I made myself. And uh, instead of being a heel, I don't think Wahoo was never a heel, and so because
Oh
I was
God, never.
he was what's that?
I say Wahoo was no God, never a heel.
Yeah.
It's funny because Karen's a good friend of mine. Karen McDaniel is a very, very dear friend of mine. And it's funny, Jeannine, that you mentioned that. It's really interesting you mentioned that because the one time that Wahoo was put in for lack of a better word, a heel position was against the ultimate babyface, Magnum TA, who was on our show talking about it. And he felt bad because they actually booed Wahoo. And he'd never been booed.
Yeah.
And he didn't like it. He was a really, he was a tough guy, but inside, if you listen to Karen, he was a really sensitive guy. He didn't like not being liked.
Yeah. Same with
He,
me. I never really. Some people love being a heel. I never did. Never really liked it.
well, let's talk about that because I heard that story. That's why I asked you the distinction between Lady Maxine and Mad Maxine. I heard that you're really like a nice person, like
Ah,
legit, like a shoot, like you're a nice person. So why get that snookered into this, being the bad guy?
well, because
Why did you let them do that to you?
well, right out of the gate, I was associated with Moolah, and I had kind of a heel look, but as soon as I could, I switched over, and that was fine because there were other women who were much happier in the heel role, like Peggy Fowler, Peggy Lee Leather,
Oh,
and
sure,
Luna,
yeah.
Luna Vachon, both great heels. Um, and they loved being heels. They were really good at it. They loved getting heat. For
Oh,
me, I
absolutely.
just, I wanted to I wanted the little kids to love me and look up to me. I just couldn't
Well,
stand the heat. I couldn't.
anyone with the name Vashon was a heel. Okay, this is male or female. Let's just cut to the chase. If your name was Vashon, you were a heel,
Right.
straight up. So let's talk about your foray out of the world of pro wrestling. What led to you finally saying, you know what, I've had enough of this stuff?
Well, I had a really good run in Florida. Had really a lot of fun wrestling with. He was going by Percy Pringle at the time,
Oh,
and
sure, Bill.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then we wrestled against Kevin Sullivan and his Army of Darkness. That was just super fun. And then went out west and let's see. Oh, I also had a wonderful partner Coco Samoa, and then I had a Haitian partner, Tyree Pride. So I mean, I was in Florida for most of my career, and
Right.
then went out west for a while, and it was pretty lonely out there. I didn't, I was not crazy about Jack Victory. He was my partner, and we were,
Really?
yeah,
Oh, Jack's a very dear friend of mine.
we did not get along for whatever
Really?
reason. Yeah.
Oh, he's
Uh,
such a sweetheart. He really is.
okay, I'll take your word for it.
He's a he's a wonderful. I've known Jack since he was 18 years old. I was there as his
Just some
first
people you don't
match.
gel with. Some people you just don't gel with. He and I
Look,
did not.
look, that's the wrestling business. That's the
Yeah,
truth. And you're absolutely right. There's some people. It's there's like oil and vinegar. They just don't mix.
that's the way it was. So that plus I was it was kind of it was like a set of three kind of horrible things that happened all in a row that just led me to want to get out. The first one is we were wrestling in Houston, and somebody broke into my dressing room and stole my camera, some costumes, a journal that I was keeping, basically everything that was in the room. So
Yeah.
that was number one. the next day, I had a shot at the Astrodome in New Orleans, and the costume I had put together a costume, kind of taped it on my body, and I had always been really careful to have like costumes that just, they could not malfunction. But in this
Yeah.
case, huge crowd, massive, massive numbers of fans, and my costume kind of fell apart in the middle of a match, and I was exposed, and I was very embarrassed.
Yeah.
Um, and then Dark Journey, who is now a friend, and we are totally at peace.
Mm-hmm.
But I was pretty embarrassed about my outfit falling apart, and I potatoed her, and then she retaliated and gave me a really hard kick to the crotch, and
You
and
got a receipt for it. Yeah.
yeah, I did. And it was really, and that was, for me, that was just like the moment of no return, the point of no return. It was like I got in my car, went the wrong way, over a bridge heading home to Baton Rouge. And I was like, okay, I think I've had the whole experience. I think I'm done now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like, I was just waiting for that kind of sign of like, okay, when is this going to be, I really
Yeah.
didn't want to just dip in. I wanted to have the whole experience. And I did.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? At that point, you deserve it. Um, you also deserve to have a little peace of mind as well. So you heard me mention at the onset that you were formerly a journalist,
Mhm.
an art curator, a wrestler, um, a member of the National Institute of Health, the Division on Aging. I want to talk about that because that did not, just happenstance go by on me. I thought to myself, interesting. So she's smart on top of all this too. So let's talk about how you forayed out of wrestling and into which came first, writing or wrestling?
Writing. Writing
Okay,
from
so
when
let's
I was a little kid. I always wrote stories when I was small.
so how do you give up your pen for spandex?
Well, I intended to I wanted to write a story about it, but I didn't want to write a story where I just like went in and stole people's, stole. I felt like I wanted to like have the whole lived experience, and so I could tell a story about it, but not the story of like, oh, is it fake? Is it not fake? That
Yeah.
kind of like was not the interesting part. The part was interesting was, how people lived and what it took to become a wrestler, because
Hmm.
I think people understand how very hard wrestlers, what they have to go through to, get in the ring and entertain people. It's just,
Well,
I
let's
think,
expound on that a little bit, Jeannine. I'm sure you follow some of the product today, and you see these young men and women with downside contracts, downside guarantees of 75,000, 80 grand.
really, I
Uh,
didn't know that.
yeah, oh,
Wow.
yeah, a downside to stay home. Okay, 75, 80 grand to sit home. I can't make this stuff up.
Wow.
I cannot even make this stuff up. You're talking about, people that the in any other job would be thankful just to have a job. These guys are getting 75 grand to sit home,
Mm.
but they're not happy with it because they're not on TV. So it just tells me the money is far less important than the exposure. In your case, what was more important, the money or the exposure?
Well, the money was not anywhere like what you're talking about. I mean, my best days were like $100 a match, and that was where, even for like the really big matches, like maybe 150, like at
Right.
the shot that I had in Orlando with Percy Pringle, where I body slammed him, which was not easy, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
sure.
but
But you've
so yeah,
got
it was
you've got a little something going for you though. You because you were associated with Moolah, and I'm assuming by virtue of that, Vince McMahon liked you and worked you a lot. So
No,
you're
I had
getting
2 matches with WWF, so I did not have a long run with them.
okay. So you go to Florida. You're working for Eddie Graham down there, or who are you working for?
Mike had taken over at that point.
Okay, Mike. Okay. Oh, Eddie had passed by this point.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so Eddie Graham passed away, and you're working for Mike. So,
But
what are
really,
you doing down there?
Wahoo was really in charge, is what it looked like to me.
Okay. Okay.
You know, he came with
so
all the
you're
stories, the kind of, who was
yeah.
going to go against who.
So
really fun stuff.
Your foray into Florida then, upon leaving the WWF to go to Florida, you leave for whatever reason. You leave writing to foray into wrestling. You leave wrestling to go back into writing, perhaps, or you are
Yeah.
okay.
I kept my hand in writing. While I was training, I took a freelance assignment for the Black News and covered a KKK rally and wrote about that. Took photos and wrote a couple of articles for the newspaper. And then they actually ended up hiring me as the managing editor of their group of 6 newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that was, it's just a way to keep active. And from there, after I got out of wrestling, I moved to Boston and worked for another Black newspaper, the Bay State Banner, which was the nation's oldest Black newspaper. And, and eventually moved back to Washington, D.C., where my sister lived, and kind of started doing more journalism up there.
It's interesting you mentioned Boston. Just 2 nights ago, we had actress and author Christine Nordstrom on the show.
I heard part of that. She was really good.
Yeah, she's a really fascinating lady. Fascinating. So you spent a little time in Boston. Did you live there?
I did. I lasted less than a year. I do not like the cold, and it's just the cold and the lack of sun and the drivers. And I mean, I enjoyed my job, but it was just too intense environment.
They say if you're from the Sunshine Belt, from the Sun Belt, that your blood isn't used to it. North of the Mason-Dixon line, you're not going to survive.
No, I really much prefer living in Florida.
So let's talk. I'm fascinating here. You got this career in journalism, and you work your way into this, the National Institute of Health, and particularly not just the National Institute of Health, but the Division on Aging and Human Genome. So how does that? I don't even know, like, where to begin. How does that fall into your lap, or does it fall into your lap?
Well, the very first job I had out of college, I went to University of South Florida in Tampa. My first job was in a retirement community working for their newspaper, and I had an amazing boss. And so I had worked writing about issues of importance to older people. And so that was, when I went to interview for the National Institute of Aging, I was able to, say that I'd done a few things like that. I helped get an Alzheimer's disease support group going at my first job. And, there were some kind of things that I was very proud of, and had a really good run there. That was about 7 years. And during that time, I promoted exercise for people over 50, even though I was 40 at the time. And, the Genome Institute, that was a really intense job. I really, it's just like hardcore science, and, working with scientists who are just amazing people. They are so passionate about what they do, and they are so willing to tell you about it.
Jeannine, do you have a science background?
I have a journalism background, but I have, a curiosity about many, many things, and I love learning new things. So,
how receptive was the scientific community to this wrestler turned journalist?
Well, once I left wrestling, I did not really let the cat out of the bag. I did not let people know that I had been a wrestler until
Bless your heart.
probably until like maybe five years before I retired, and then I it was like, then I would like let it out. But I was concerned that they would like wonder about me if I let them know about that. So I kept my wrestling life and my
That's really
professional life
interesting. Really,
separate.
really interesting. It's funny. I'm just like in my mind is just going right now because as I said at the beginning we call it in the ring here. There's nothing ever scripted. I'm thinking to myself, it's so bizarre that you're trying to privatize something that was so public.
Yeah.
And it's funny how we do that. But you've been on television and you've been, crisscrossing the country. So there's got to be this handful, a smattering of people, or more than a smattering of people who know who you are or have seen your face and go, "Hey, you look familiar."
Well, that was the beauty of living before the age of social media. All the crazy things that I didn't get recorded and posted online, never to disappear. So
You're a lucky, lucky
I
lady.
know. I really am.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my God, can you imagine a Mad Maxine in the social age? Oh, for God's sakes, please. Oh, so you talk about it really, and getting it, sinking your teeth into getting a bite out of this scientific realm, and enjoying what you're chewing on. So let's talk about. I'm going to explore this a little bit with you. Let's talk about your exploration of the world of science and how you parlayed that into what you're doing now.
Well, I still actually do science writing now. I mean, I take freelance projects.
Hmm.
Um, like when I was at the Aging Institute, the things that really stuck in my brain, are the things that I use all the time now. The importance of exercising every
Hmm.
day, and exercising pretty hard. I work out with weights. I bike. I swim. I play tennis.
And you're a tall woman too. You're
Yeah,
6 foot six.
6'2".
I know you're. Are you 6'2"?
I am.
Are you
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
And in the interest of full disclosure, we have to tell people that you're, pushing like 90 years old and you look wonderful for your
I'm
age.
61. I don't have any problem telling you my age.
I'm busting your chops. I knew
Uh,
I'd get it out of you though.
doesn't bother me at all. The other thing is like,
By the way, just for the record, you and I are the same age.
how are you? Is that
Yeah,
right? Well, you look
exactly.
good too, Angelo.
Yeah, thank you.
The importance of having friends, people that you're connected with, the importance of
Sure.
having a sense of purpose,
Mhm.
things that make you want to get up in the morning. Um, I gave up drinking in January, so that's no longer a factor.
Good for you. I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, I stopped smoking on my birthday. I gave myself a birthday present. I smoked for 38 years. And at the age of 61, I quit smoking.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And now I am getting as big as a house because
Well,
I
that's
don't know.
why I stopped drinking, because I could not lose weight while I was my husband is an amazing brewer of beer, and we have 5 different kinds of beer in the house at all times, and they're all beers that I like to drink, and I just could not manage to lose weight while drinking his amazing beer.
And I can't lose weight in a minute. I walk every day with my dog, and I just can't. Maybe it's the fact that I eat every piece of candy, and I have a sweet tooth. I love candy.
Yeah, I do too.
That's oh my God, that's my thing. But so what's next for you? You're continuing to write. You're
Right.
doing a lot of freelance work. Is there, because I have this feeling, and I know some people, as I mentioned before, I know some people who know you, and we worked for the same people. But one of the things I want to find out is I had a little birdie told me that there's another book in you.
Oh yeah, I'm already working on that actually.
Yeah, I heard that
Yeah.
one. I heard that.
It's going to be, it's there's still going to be, some real in it, but there's, it's going to be a lot of crazy stuff that
Well,
happens.
you
Because
know what the blessing of that is, and actually had an author tell me this. The blessing of writing from reality and calling it fiction is that you can get away with shit that you would not ordinarily be able to get away with legally if it were an autobiography or based on, hardcore truth. You have, as you said earlier, creative liberties. That's your story. You could tell it any way you want.
right.
And who's to dispute it? So which is a wonderful thing. So are you toying with any working titles?
We don't
Is
have a
there
title for it yet, but the group of lady wrestlers, they moved to Florida, but they actually form a vigilante group, and they go out and they help out people who need somebody in their corner, and they kick ass and they make sure everybody's taken care of. So they kind of are
I
like the
have
binging goddesses.
I will tell you I have a title for you.
Okay, lay it
I
on me.
will tell you off air.
Ah,
I will tell you off air. I have it hit
oh,
me
go on.
like
Go ahead and tell it right now.
no, I can't because then I want to make sure that you have it. If I put it out there, somebody will snatch it up. I'm not going to tell it.
Okay, all right.
I'll tell you privately though. Oh, absolutely. Oh, I got a title for you. It's crazy.
Yeah, titles
Um.
are really hard to come up with, let me tell you.
Oh, look, I'm like a marketing genius. I'm like boom, 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 boom. If you watch this show, you know that.
Yeah, I like that backdrop that you did. That's pretty cool.
I created that just for you, and I do this for every guest that comes on the show.
I like it.
I give them their background, so you'll get this after the show.
All right, awesome.
Yeah. Um. So you have this other book you're working on. We'll talk
Right,
about that, and moderately because we don't want to give away the baby with the bathwater.
right.
Um.
I'm
We
also working on a one-woman show based on the book, that I hope that with my husband, hope to take to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is like this amazing theatrical experience over in Scotland.
interesting,
Yep.
interesting stuff. A friend of mine, I'm sure you know him, Gary Michael Capetta.
Hmm.
The WWF, WCW, NWA ring announcer, Gary Capetta, did the very same thing with his book. He actually created a one-man show based on his book. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Terrific.
And then I started a theater group down here in my community, and as soon as COVID goes away, we'll get started, and we'll continue to perform plays, and so it's always very
Terrific.
busy. Yeah.
And where are you? Which state are you living in now? Where?
I'm in Florida.
Oh,
Back in
you're in
Florida.
Florida. Okay. I'm going to hook you up with a friend of the show, a very dear friend of mine, filmmaker named Mike Messier.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you know Mike. He's in Jacksonville.
Hmm.
Great guy. He has an Avalonia Film Festival. He's also a playwright. He performs in plays and writes plays.
Awesome.
But he's best known for a film called Disregard the Vampire. Mike Messier is a great guy, and I'm going to hook you up with him.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm gonna give you his number and all that when we get off the air.
Okay.
So we are approaching the top of the hour, and this is a 1 hour show. I do have to do a word from our sponsor because they pay the bills around here. Um, you're gonna love this one, so forgive me. Do you have sweaty balls or volleyball netty balls? It's time to make them ready balls. The Manscaped.com Lawnmower 3.0 will do the job and clean your knob with their patented no-nick head, so your head will function as desired. Just enter wrestling promo code Wrestling Future for a 20% discount. on your first order, and we will take care of the rest. That's manscaped.com. Wrestling Future is our promo code for a 20% discount. Your balls will thank you, and so will we. Sorry to have to do that to you.
That's all right. I was expecting it.
There you go. So let us get to Jeannine and tell everybody where they can find the book, where they can find you, how they can hit you up on social media and follow your appearances.
Sure. Well, a lot of people, prefer to have the book signed, so people can get a book from me directly via PayPal. Oops, sorry. Let's see. Hold on for a quick sec. Oh, PayPal. It's just PayPal at my last name, Mjoseth. Or Venmo, Jeannine Mjoseth. I have a hard-hitting advice from Professional Lady Wrestler on Facebook page. You can just Google Mad Maxine. It'll come up.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Terrific.
Yeah. So.
All right. So, and do you have like Instagram, that sort of?
I don't really do. I have an Instagram page, but I don't do all that much with it.
Okay.
Not as active.
Pretty much Facebook and Twitter, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to tell everyone the book is The Chronicles of Mad Maxine. It is available on Amazon. I encourage everyone to get the book. It is an amazing read. If you are a fan of professional wrestling, you will love it. If you are a fan of female professional wrestling, it is a must-have. You will not put it down. And I want to thank you for being with us, Jeannine
Mjoseth.
Mjoseth. There you go. And I got it. Mjoseth.
All right.
Mjoseth. See that? I got it.
Pretty close.
I told you I'd get it before the end of the show. I want to thank you for being with us. You are cordially invited back to join us. I would love to have you back when I do Ladies' Night again. I'd love to have you with Princess Victoria and Judy Martin and Casey Carlisle and really like dish the dirt. I'd love to have you back.
Sure.
So there is an invite there. So for Wrestling with the Future, for Jeannine Mjoseth, I got it. Hot damn. I'm Angelo DeCipio. Take care. Happy wrestling, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.